Hello boys and girls, welcome to a let's play of Home, a game presented to me on Steam by a fan of mine, Laraki. It is a unique horror adventure, it says. Let's see it. All I remembered at that point was finding myself alone. Oh my head, where was I? It was so dark. There was something by my feet, a flashlight. Ah, okay. I guess this is where... some kind of dirt. Well, this should be my home, right? That house, where was I? So this is not my home. What is this? Somebody dead, perhaps? There was a body lying on the floor. Who was it? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I didn't recognize his face. He was still kind of warm. There's a cat. Ooh. This is water, right? Okay, now where to go? Straight forward or downstairs? Let's don't go downstairs right now. Some books, I presume. A computer. Blood on the wall. It smelled fresh and sickening. I realized there was blood on my shoes and pants. Oh man, I had to get out of here. Blood on my shoes and pants. The desk had a computer and some papers on it, and a single drawer. I didn't want to snoop, but did I open the drawer? Well, of course I did. Receipts, pens, and a blurry photo. Looked like a store of some kind. Why did this look so familiar? I really shouldn't have been going through this stuff, getting my fingerprints everywhere. So it's looking somehow familiar. I noticed that I limped as I moved down the stairs. Why did I hurt my leg, I wondered. All I could really recall was coming home, seeing Rachel. I was upset. She looked afraid. I shook my head and tried to clear it. I knew I should head downstairs, try to find a way out. The shelf was full of books on local history and hunting. Seemed like the owner of the house really knew the area. What a strange noise that was. It's another desk. An old dining table covered in dirty dishes for 2 people. There were dozens of beer cans and other liquor bottles among the dishes. The smell was turning my stomach. Oh, something's here. A black and white photo. Looked like the man upstairs and his wife, I guessed. There was no reason for me to keep this. Did I take it? Well, yes, I did. I slipped the photo into my pocket. Maybe this would help me to find some answers. What's this? A thin grey mouse was stuck in a trap. It looked frantic but exhausted. Did I free it? Yes, I did free the mouse. It ran to the hole here in the wall. A collection of rusty tools. These looked like they'd seen a lot of use and were caked in a damp smelling dirt. Why weren't they in a shed? Yes, indeed. Why weren't they in a shed? And on the wall I see a photo of similar to the old one I picked up. It had been moved a lot. There seemed to be a switch behind it. I pushed the switch. It depressed smoothly into the wall. I heard a faraway click somewhere. In the library there were, the bookshelves were scribbles of all kinds of random scraps of paper and notes about some kind of water tower. Did he mean the one by the old train yard? Let's go downstairs and see. Isn't this where I came from? This is where I came from, right? I believed I went downstairs, but looks like I went upstairs again. A strange thing here. If that man died in the hallway, why was the blood? What was the blood doing here instead of there? Did anybody drag him there? I believe now this is one level down. I looked like hell. I looked in the mirror. My clothes were dirty and torn, and there was mud caked all over my shoes. I wonder, did I? Oh, there I see a front door was blocked by a pile of furniture. I knew I had to find another way out. Okay. Oh, what was that noise? A barred door. The door was taped and seemed to be stuck. By the smell, I guessed it led to the kitchen. I gave the door a hard shove, and to my surprise, it cracked open. There were sheets of paper all over the kitchen table. It looked like a series of names were written down, but they were too smudged to read. I could only make out a few of the notes. Keycard, locker. Last one, I promise. It didn't make much sense at the time. Keycard, locker, and mouse again. Had another hole here in the kitchen. Key card and a locker. The box looked heavy, but there were marks on the floor. It had obviously been moved before. Maybe I had found a way out. I must have moved it, right? Yes, I moved out the box. I moved the box forward and it finally gave. Now we see a ladder downstairs. There was a ladder going underground where the box was. A dank smell rose from the passage. I climbed down the ladder and I looked again at the photo I found in the house. The couple looked distant, like they didn't want to be in the same picture. I wondered where the wife was. My leg was in terrible shape, but I had to get out. Sound of dripping water. There were footprints in the dirt. It looked like more than one kind, and a lot of traffic. Whatever this place was, it was obviously used a lot. Is it some kind of a map here hanging on the wall? Places all over were marked on the old map of town. The industrial area near the river, various houses, and even the water tower near the old rail station. The guy upstairs must have done this, but what was his interest in the water tower? Some of the markings matched the scribbles I saw on the bookshelves, in the bookshelf upstairs. Newspaper clippings from the local paper. They were all about murders in town over the last few years. Wait, there were photos of our house. What the hell was that about? Maybe I should have looked around more, tried to find some kind of information. Oh, Rachel, please be okay. I wanted to rush home, but I had to find a way out first, and I needed to see what else was down there. A work table covered in papers, dirt, and a handgun. I hated guns. I didn't take it, did I? Well, yes, I did. I tucked the small handgun into my pocket. Its weight was somehow reassuring. Why did I take the gun? There's another ladder downstairs. It was so dark down here, and the air smelled stale and putrid. I couldn't believe what I saw. What was this place? Another ladder downstairs. Hooks. Bookshelves? Shelves, at least. Crudely made shelves. They looked like they were holding cans of some kind of corrosive. The labels were worn and slick, but I could still see the warnings. The slight fumes that still emanated from the cans made me dizzy. Look at this cage. It was small, but there was something coating the bottom, something wet. The place was getting worse all the time. I knew I had to keep moving. Which way down? What is this? Another table. A desk looked old and was caked with grime. On it was a stack of old faded paper covered with what looked like names. They were scratched out and illegible notes were written beside them in faded blue ink. I could only make out a few letters. Here. None of it made any sense to me. More hooks. What is this? They look like bones, half dug into the ground, and the remains looked old. The faded clothes that stuck up amongst the dirt looked familiar. They looked like the clothes that woman that was wearing in the photo I found. Was this the man's wife? I wondered what I have found if I had dug deeper. I didn't take the shovel. There is one ladder down and another ladder down. I don't know which one to take. I'll take this green one first. Some boxes on the ground. They looked like they were years old. Wait a minute. These boxes had old clothes in them. Clothes I remembered throwing out after Rachel and I moved to town. What the hell were they doing there? If I was scared before, I was terrified now. Why were there photos of our house there? And these clothes? Was that why I was there? I checked my back pocket and realized my wallet was missing. Did I come to that house or did somebody bring me? Oh, I'm terrified by the sound. It doesn't really sound like a mouse. It's bats. I remembered noticing the broken ladder. I had to be careful. Yes. You can't climb it, can I? I don't remember if I jumped down there or I found another way. It looked to be a long way. Did I jump down? No, I didn't jump. Maybe there was some other way to get down there without risking any more injury to my leg. There was a rope hanging there. I wasn't sure how sturdy it was. I took it. Maybe it would make that broken ladder easier to descend. What was that sound? It sounded like a woman talking to me. I took another look at the hook. I had the rope now. There must have been a use for it around somewhere else. The rope I found would have let me climb down the broken ladder safely, and I did indeed climb down. I could hear a faint hum, and the smell from before started to get worse. A bunch of old newspapers, wheat pasted together. A message had been hastily smeared on it. Keep out, danger due to cave-in. I wanted nothing more than to get out of there. Is this door made out of iron? I could still feel a faint impression of the rope I had slid down as I pressed against the heavy metal door. It was probably for the best that I hadn't jumped. The ache in my leg was bad enough as it was. If I could have, though, I would have run straight out of the house, out of those awful tunnels. Who would keep such a place? At least I thought I had found that old handgun. It seemed to work, and from the smell of it, it had been used already. I kept the gun in my pocket. It seemed a familiar weight there. There was dirt on the ground. It looked wet, and there was grass smeared within it. An arrow on the wall pointing to the door, but a ladder. I was curious to see what was up there. Oh, it's disgusting. It was a mess of filthy garbage bags. There were ribs and tears in most of tears in most of the bags. What looked like an old videotape was sticking out. Did I take the tape? Of course I did. I wasn't sure what I hoped to discover with that tape, but I took it anyway. I had another look at the garbage here, but I didn't want to keep digging through this mess. Climbed the ladder down, and out of the door I went. I could hear a faint trickling sound like water. What was that? A door marked exit. I passed by it and looked on the ground, a kitchen knife covered in drying blood. Thinking about it made me sick. I didn't even want to touch it. But I did still take it. I slipped the knife in my boot since I had the gun in my pocket. Did I really need all this? Well, the knife is a tool. There was another door. It's curious. .4 written on the... I wasn't sure what those valves were used for. Did I turn it anyway? No, I didn't turn it just yet. I let the valve alone. I went further through the door. 3 and 4. Valves marked 3 and 4. This valve is marked 2. And there is door marked 1. Presumably there is a valve marked 1 behind this door. And there was one. And what is this? I wasn't sure, but I thought it was some kind of regulator. I had no idea how it worked. Through the dust I could see handprints from previous use, probably from whoever worked in those sewers. And another door. The door was locked. There was a musty smell from inside. Well, I entered the exit door. And there was a rusty ladder sunk into the water which smelled disgusting. I knew I couldn't climb down that. Maybe I could find a way to drain the putrid water. Let's... I turned the valve 1. And 2. And 3. And 4. And that made a different sound. Looked like I turned off the water flow in this valve. In all of them, right? Well, I turned this one again. Okay. I checked valve 2 and 1. And now I checked again behind the exit doors. The water was gone indeed. Climbed down the ladder. It looked like the water drained out of that grate in the wall. I wondered whether I can sneak through there, but there was a small metal key left floating in the shallow pool of rancid water. I took it. I pocketed the small key, but it was so odd-shaped I had no idea what it might open. But then I remembered there was a locked door somewhere. And the safety post had definitely seen better days. How old was this facility? The door was locked. I could see a faint light within. Maybe the key will fit in. But it didn't. I went upstairs. Another body. A sewer worker. By the wounds all over his face and body, I figured he'd been stabbed repeatedly. There was a key ring sticking out of the man's pocket, and I took it. I thought about the knife I had found in some disgust, and I carefully picked the keys from his pocket. I was almost worried he was going to grab me. I was feeling even more sick from seeing another dead man. I didn't want to get any more blood on my clothes. Surveillance cam. There was a hint of fresh air here. I must have been near an exit. But I wondered, what did that key I found on the sewer worker, and what was on the videotape I found? There was a ladder upstairs. I made my way up the ladder as best I could on my leg. Would I really need that gun or that knife before the end? Who knows? I wondered what was on that VHS tape I found, or in that locked room. Should I have gone back to check? Of course. My head was buzzing with questions, and I tried thoughts as I ascended the ladder. Suddenly, as I lifted the heavy lid above me, I could smell fresh old pine trees. The lid had fallen on the entrance there and was stuck down. I couldn't get back there. There was a fence. I tried the little key and had fished out of the murky puddle in the murky puddle in the sewers. It fit, and I heaved open the rusty door. The wind was picking up a bit. The night air had become strangely chilly. And the old train station was quiet as a tomb. The only sound was that of the increasing wind buffeting the decrepit structure. I'm inside the house again, in another part. You wonder which way to take. The ancient ticket booth was falling apart and covered in dust and grime. Stacks of paper lined in the counter, faded remains of old schedules and reports. Among the papers were newer-looking sheets covered in scribbles and illegible notes. Come to think of it, the man in that house had kept similar scribbles hidden on his bookshelf, and he had notes on the water tower outside too. I guess he could have been coming here, but why? What was he using this old station for? I couldn't be sure why the man had come to this station before, but it seemed obvious that he had. An old map encased in glass hung on the wall. It was the train routes connected to that old station. As I looked at it, it seemed familiar. Of course, the map I found on the house tunnels and had similar locations marked, and the notes I found on the other man's bookshelf. His notes mentioned the water tower and even this train yard. What was he doing coming back here? The old train was ripped open, and hanging from a shred of metal as well as a broken fence was a dark stained patch of cloth. It looked synthetic, like some kind of outerwear. Inside the train's shell I could see a few faint impacts like wounds. Could they have been bullet marks? Was somebody shot there? The ground was well worn, though I couldn't really make anything out. I realized I was touching the gun I had found as I thought. It was getting colder out there. I had to keep moving. This must have been the entrance to the forest that was mentioned on that map I had seen. Whoever was poking around in those tunnels underneath that man's house had scribbled notes on this place, but I couldn't make them out. Here the sign pointed out various campsites and walking paths within the woods. It mentioned a river and maybe a washroom, but the rest was too faded to see clearly. There was a fire pit here. It was still a bit warm and a few embers still burned at the bottom. 2 folding camping chairs were on the ground. One was knocked over. There were a couple of cans of beer spilled on the ground. The cheap dome tent slept 2 people. I shone my flashlight inside and could see some bedrolls, 2 backpacks and a cooler. Through the fence I could see a dilapidated outbuilding. I wondered if I could find my way around. There were some personal effects shoved back into the rock. Wait, there was a notebook there too. I read it. Inside the cheap dollar store notebooks was page after worn page of names and lists. None of it made much sense. The newest page contained several names. Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holly, Rose, Rachel. Rachel! Her name was last on the list and had a mark beside it in blue ink. The names Daphne and Olivia had been crossed out in the same blue ink. Cheryl, Heather and Rose had also been crossed out, but these marks looked older and more faded. No idea where I was going. I almost wished I had paid more attention to those crazy scribblings. Maybe I would have been less nervous about entering that dark forest. An old and dry old picnic table sat lonely amongst the trees. It had carvings and marks from years of previous campers. As I tried to read some of the names and marks, I idly thumbed the knife I had found. If I wanted to, I could have carved something on that table. With a few crude strokes, I had etched a simple design into the wood. R and age. I felt like a teenager defacing the table. The path ended in a cold-looking river. I wasn't sure if it was safe to cross this, but I did. Two bodies, two young women, were half dug into a hasty, shallow grave between the trees. The younger-looking one was still face up, her dead eyes gleaming against my flashlight. They deserved better than that. Did I clean up the gravesite? Yes, I did. I tried to cover them up in a bit more, and I closed the younger woman's eyes. I fashioned a crudge marker. I wasn't sure why, but I felt I had to do something. The girls weren't carrying ID, so I couldn't determine their names. I only hoped that whoever had done this had done it quickly. I wondered now if they had a phone or something in their campsite. Maybe I could call for help. Yeah, I waded the river back. Trying to find their campsite again. Here it is. The inside of the tent was suffocating. Olivia? Daphne? By the looks of it, the fire hadn't been extinguished. It had just died out over time. But no phone here. No phone. I was looking for a way around all this. Look. It must be on the back side of the water tower or something. The Grammy Singh had a small patch in that looked almost clean. There was a damp smelling plank leaning against the stall door. I might have been able to cross the river with it. Well, I took it. I managed to carry the plank under my arm so it didn't get in the way. The plank I found was long enough to form a crude bridge, but I wasn't sure if it would hold. I used it anyway. I didn't really do much other than helping me cross the river. I didn't find any new paths. There's a ladder here. An old ladder leading up to the ancient water tower. The ladder needed to be extended so I could climb it, and I did try that. I popped the latch and I brought the ladder down. I took another look. In a patch of smeared dirt and grass there was a beat-up old wallet. I thought it was mine. I took it. I slid the filthy wallet into my back pocket. I noticed it didn't contain any kind of gun permit. In fact, it didn't contain any cards or ID of any kind. I thought I should recover my credit card and driver's license at least. From the railing I could see over the woods and down to the entrance to the sewers. Had I come through there before? If I did, someone definitely would have seen me. It was getting cool up there and I shivered with an uneasy sense of what was to come. How did I get home from here? I read some of the other names and notes on the table surface. Rytron, Kumar, Uncle Phil, Henry, Daniel, David, Jenny. Seemed like the table had seen a lot of use over the years. Trampled into the dirt and grass was a plastic card of some kind. I brushed it off and was surprised to see it was my credit card. I wasn't sure if it was still usable, but it was mine. Did I take back my credit card? Yes. I pocketed the credit card. Hopefully I could find my driver's license too. The sign was the same as the first one I had seen. This must have been the exit to the other side of the woods. I had finally found the exit. Once I left, I knew I never wanted to return there. Through the dense trees, I could finally start to see some light. I must have been at the edge of the forest, though I wasn't sure where the path ahead of me led. I could almost feel the cryptic notebook in my pocket as I tried to think about what it could mean, and where were the campers who had abandoned their site. Would I meet them too? Though the path ahead of me was less dense, I still felt guarded and wary. Who knew what was ahead? As I stepped through the gate, I suddenly recognized the auto parts factory where I had worked as a machinist for all those years. The plant had closed almost 3 years ago now. Times were better then. I thought I could hear a faint rustling behind me. Maybe it was just the wind. One of the lockers hung open. Its contents were tossed around like someone had been looking for something. There was a large power box with 5 lights on it. Cables burst out of the box, sneaking off to the other parts of the factory. The metal was starting to wear and cobwebs had collected the corners. It didn't look like the power was on yet. The door was locked tight. It seemed to be connected to the power box beside it. Ah, I see. The other door was locked shut, and there was a little electronic box under the handle. A sign was pasted to the front that said "Danger, closed for repairs." Every part of this plant smelled old and rotted. I noticed the old bulletin board on the wall. The board contained yellowed clippings of newspaper cartoons and notices. There were notes to and from the guys that worked here. One of them was to Norman, who was one of the older guys on the line. Wait, that note to Norman. Let's read it. Norman took over a general store after the factory closed. He, Rachel, and I would get lunch every now and then. Rachel liked him because he seemed more positive despite the setback. I don't think I could say the same about me. Our old break table, the layer of dust and grime only made seeing sting more. A power panel. Looked like it was shut off. I pushed the switch once and twice. The open locker was stuffed with dirty work clothes and old boots. There was a photo of a woman taped to the inside, but it was scratched out and the face was unrecognizable. Another power box. The door was shut tight. There was a rusty looking card slot on the side. Maybe I can use my what if I move this one? But two of these lights are green now. This door had been hastily boarded up. This was Norman's locker. The door was dented like someone had punched it. I don't remember him doing that when he worked there. My head ached, and I recalled the last time Norman, Rachel and I had lunch together. Rachel seemed so much more at ease when we all hung out. Another panel that I hoped could help me get the power back on. A utility shelf crammed with mismatched tools and items. There was a claw hammer on the shelf. I took it. As I took the hammer, I noticed it wasn't as dusty as the rest of the tools on the shelf. Wow. The locker was a complete mess. Hidden at the bottom, though, was a magnetic card. I slipped the keycard into my pocket. From the musty smell, I assumed no one had used this locker for a long time. Another panel where I pushed the switch twice. It didn't work. Now they did. I hear the noise of... It sounds like it's working again. I should check the box down there. Well, the keycard I found seemed it would pass through this reader. There was some kind of ventilation hatch there. It looked like I could jump to the room below. My leg hurt enough as it was, but I couldn't see another option. No, I didn't jump. If I was too chicken to jump down that broken ladder before, why do it now? There had to be another way. No, the door locked somehow itself again. There was no keycard slot on this side. I had to jump. Oh man, my leg hurt like hell. There was a crumpled up letter on the floor. It had been scratched out heavily and it was hard to make out. Did I try to read the letter? Yes. Most of the letter was violently scratched out with what looked to be a ballpoint pen. All I could make out was need to, drinking, need, Norman, writing too. Oh. I looked around at the darkened trees and damp, hard-packed dirt outside the factory walls. I wasn't entirely familiar with the path before me, but I knew it was a long walk home. For some reason I felt a hint of regret at leaving that place, but I knew I had to get home to Rachel. I thought I'd try to make it back to the main road and find my way from there. The garbage bin was a disgusting mess of rotten food and slick black bags. I saw a thin greenish corner poking out from one of the bags. It was my driver's license. It looked damaged. I took it back. I cleaned the card off as best I could. It looked pretty beat up. I was amazed to have found my credit card, and now this. I tucked the card into my wallet next to my credit card. Sounded like it was going to start raining again. I had entered Norman's place. This was the back of the store that he ran. It was oddly quiet, except for the faint sound of a television. The entrance to the front of the store was locked from the inside. Looked like I couldn't just pop it open. It needed a key. There was a bit of blood on the keyhole. What was this? It looked like a pull chain hanging from the ceiling. I wondered where it led. I gave the chain a single tug, and the simple folding ladder to the attic popped down. The TV set still flickered some indecipherable channel. I couldn't make out what was on the screen, but the glow just gave me the chills. Oh no, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Norman, my co-worker and one of the few friends I had in this town, lay dead beside his armchair. His face and shirt were covered in blood. It looked like he'd been shot trying to get up. His eyes were still wide with shock. Norman, you deserved better than this. I closed his eyes. I guess this was Norman's kitchen table. He kept it clean enough, but there were water rings from 2 cups still there in the wood. The kitchen's trash bin smelled fresh. I did dig through the mess. I found a hairpin amongst the rotting food and trash and pocketed it. Now this looks familiar. There was a large cardboard box that hadn't been sealed. Inside the old cardboard box was a pile of clothes, photos, and even shoes. As I looked closer, I realized they were Rachel's. What were you doing here, Rachel? Were you reasonable for poor Norman? Were you responsible for poor Norman downstairs? I wasn't entirely surprised to find this there. It was one of the Rachel's old fall clothes. I always wondered what happened to it. How long had it been there? There was a little bit of something dark staining the sleeve. Inside the cabinet was a small but impressive collection of hunting rifles, shotguns, and even a few items I didn't think were legal here. One of the slots on the rack was empty, and the gun I had found seemed to match the others there. If the handgun was Norman's, what the hell was he doing with it? The gun would fit there. I placed it back, yes. I carefully pushed the piece back in place and felt a great burden lifted. I had entered Norman's place. This was the back of the store that he ran. Well, I know, but I didn't find the way. Oh, I used the hairpin to pick the lock. The hairpin snapped in half, so I threw it away. The general store was small, but it was clean. It had the usual things: postcards, snacks, magazines, and canned goods. I never went there much. Rachel usually stopped by after work if we needed anything. The register was mostly empty, and a fat stack of travel magazines sat beside it. Were you thinking of going somewhere with Rachel, Norman? The icebox seemed to be unplugged. It must have been off for a while. Most of its contents were half melted. There were various postcards from the area, especially from the tourist traps. One of the postcards showed an old black and white photo of the water tower. It looked to be in much better shape than. It had been weeks since I had last seen Norman, and finding him that way still left me cold. Thinking of him slumped against the chair only cemented my reassurance in getting rid of that gun. It looked like someone had taken that piece from his store, but why was it in those tunnels? As I stepped outside, I recalled that dusty old box of clothes in Norman's attic. I felt I had only discovered more questions to answers, but I was close to home. It was time to find out the truth. It was locked. This wasn't the right gate. the neighborhood's local postbox. A letter was sticking out as if someone hadn't pushed it all the way in. I knew it wasn't right, but I took it. The envelope was addressed to Norman. There was no return address, but the handwriting looked familiar. I took a deep breath and tore open the package. Norman, I'm sending this to you in a letter because I'm afraid to tell you this in person. What we did, well, it was wrong. My husband isn't an easy man to be with, but he is my husband and your friend. I need some time to sort this out away from you both. I'm going away for a while. I'm going to tell him. Norman, so don't you think you can hold that against me? I'm going to tell him, Norman, so you don't think you can hold that against me. Maybe you'll work it out. I'm not sure I even want to, but he deserves at least that much. Goodbye. I had entered our backyard. The rain gave me a terrible sense of foreboding, and it chilled me through my clothes. I was expectant, but also afraid. I held my breath as I approached our back door. I was terrified to step inside. The house was painfully quiet. The only sound was my own breathing, ragged and strained. I flicked the light switch by the door. The power was off. I remembered having breakfast here on this very table. Was it yesterday or sometime before? The table was clean. It hadn't been used any time recently. There was a small pile of mail on the floor in front of the mail slot. How long had I been away? Why hadn't Rachel picked this up? Most of the contents were bills. There was a credit card bill there. I opened it and read it. To my surprise, it said something about cancelling my credit cards due to non-payment. What the hell? The front door was locked from inside. I couldn't go out, though. I needed to see if Rachel was here. This was the door to the basement. It was locked. Where had I put the damned key? The door was stuck shut. There was an old-fashioned keyhole underneath the handle. I had found the last missing piece from my wallet. The old photo of Rachel and I stared back at me, reminding me of better times. It didn't make me feel terribly comfortable, but I kept it anyway. I replaced the photo in my wallet, feeling like I had got part of my life back. Still, the image made me uneasy. Why had I thrown it away? Our television. I had purchased this before I knew I was going to lose my job. I felt pretty guilty about it afterward, but by then it was too late. Rachel was pretty angry about that, I realized. The books there were half mine, half Rachel's. Hey, now that I looked more closely, it looked like the man in the house had some of the same books as I did. One book in particular seemed a bit odd. I remember owning it, but not that edition. My wife's Rachel's suitcase was sitting on the bed. It was closed, but I had a feeling what was in it. I opened it. Rachel's suitcase contained clothes, toiletries, and a train ticket. Is this what you were going to do with Norman? Our hallway mirror had been smashed, its pieces scattered around the floor. Our sink, which needed to be replaced. One of the taps always stuck, but I hadn't got around to fixing it yet. That old house was charming for sure, but it wasn't always easy. We were lucky enough to get a house with one of those wonderful old claw-footed bathtubs. It seemed impractical at times, but it was part of what made that house home. My laptop had been left on and only had a tiny bit of power left. On the screen was a website about the old water tower. There was a key in the top drawer of my desk. I took it. The laptop was warm. It had been running for a while. I couldn't have been away that long. I unlocked the basement door. There was old Christmas decorations in the box. I couldn't even remember our last Christmas. The garbage bags were stuffed with old paint cans and supplies. There was a dirty old key there. I took the small key and tried to remember what it unlocked. There were old clothes, tools, other things we obviously hadn't thrown out yet. We had way too much junk. I had put up this divider wall last summer so we could create a separate room in the basement. I hadn't finished it yet, so the door was stuck and the drywall was poorly installed. I might have been able to break through if I found something heavy enough. The grimy key I had found in the basement unlocked the door. It looked like the room had been tossed around. The furniture was a mess. Did somebody break in here? There was an old crowbar on the floor. Did I take the crowbar? Oh, yes, I did. It was heavy. I appreciated its weight. I did break through the wall with the crowbar. With a heave, I swung the crowbar at the wall. I smashed a hole large enough to step through. As I stepped through the broken wall, my breath caught in my throat. This was it. Was Rachel down there? Was she okay? "Don't look" was written on the wall. "Don't look" written again. A filthy-looking pile of rags had been dumped in the corner. The stench of them was awful and made my eyes water. I was terrified to even touch the pile to see what lay within, but I knew I had to come this far. After all this searching, after all I had seen, when I looked within the rags, did I finally find my Rachel? No. The rags were wet, matted, covered in dirt and grime, but inside that tattered mess was no sign of my beloved wife. Rachel wasn't there. I looked around in confusion, trying to figure out what to do next. If she wasn't there, where was she? What I had been searching for this entire time. I remembered the look on Rachel's face when I came home, didn't I? Then the awful realization hit me right in the gut. I had been looking at this the wrong way, hadn't I? This is what you've been trying to tell me all along, isn't it? I couldn't find Rachel there, and I won't find her anywhere else because she was never there at all, was she? I stumbled back upstairs. The pain in my leg was just dull ache now, and sat down in my bedroom. My mind was spinning, and the ache I felt before was near crippling. Finally, I could no longer fight the exhaustion, and as I tried to grab hold of something that would make sense of all this, I must have drifted off. I guess these books were all actually mine then. In the dirty faded glass I looked like nothing more than a faint shadow. I used to tell myself that Rachel was one of the one who wanted to keep the tub. I see things differently now. It was my wallet with its contents intact. Either I dropped that stuff or somebody else did. Maybe I was sleepwalking again, or maybe somebody stole it from me. Norman stole that forest, the water tower. Was I at those places before? Yes. I didn't see how it could have happened any other way. I must have been the one to lose my wallet and its contents. But what does that mean? My head was pounding. I couldn't go back down now, not until I had gone over everything. I needed to make sure I was perfectly clear. It was the letter I had taken from the post box. It had gotten a bit wet in the train, but who wrote the letter then? Who was Norman seeing? Oh no, Norman, if I was wrong about Rachel, then what about him? Did I do that horrible thing to him? No, I couldn't have. I clearly wasn't seeing things correctly, but no, I could never do something like that. I still have no idea what was on that tape I found in the garbage. If I only had found a way to watch it. I had that old TV for so long, I don't know if I could ever replace it. The old VCR had long since broken down and I had never bothered to replace it. It was the photo of the other man and his wife that I found in that house. Were those really his wife's remains in those tunnels? It certainly seemed so. What did I think? Did the other man murder his wife and bury her in those tunnels? Yes. The sick bastard must have. What else did that mean? There were some questionable things in those tunnels. What else was he wrapped up in? There, that was decided. Who killed that man anyway? In the shards of that broken mirror I could see my face, gaunt now, hollow and sickly and immensely troubled. What other illusions had I dreamed up? What other truths were waiting to be exposed? There was only one set of toiletries by the sink. When was the last time I showered? I smelled awful. My old office safe sat on the floor. It used a digital passcode lock. I tried to open it. What was it? Use 8-digit code. What was that damn code again? No, that wasn't it. Damn, I couldn't remember. I leafed through the notebook I had taken from the forest. In it were names that had been written down. Heather, Olivia, Ashley, Cheryl, Iris, Daphne, Holder, Rose. What did they mean? The handwriting seemed shaky and a bit off. I didn't want to compare it to my own. The pile of mail was on the floor now. Credit card offers. By the looks of it, I hadn't collected the mail over in a week. The more I thought of Norman, the worse I started to feel. It was the keycard I found in the factory, the one that allowed me to slip through the door. It seemed to me that it was probably Norman's. But if that was true, what was he doing back at the plant? Did I think Norman was going back to the factory? Yes. Who else would have it been? Norman, what were you doing back there? The laptop had finally run out of power. How long had it been left running? Had this mirror been broken in a struggle or by some other way? It seemed like I had seen all there was. Maybe, though, I was ready to go back into the basement. Maybe there wouldn't be anything for me to find, but I had to take the last look. If I was guilty, I could take this to a warm, safe place and do something about it. Did I pick up the knife? Yes. I took the knife and kept it firmly in my hand. The wall was cracked and pitted. I was told by an inspector the basement had been partially filled before I bought the house, but by the look of that wall, I was going to need to fix the foundation. Everything smelled musty and old down there. How many breakfasts had I eaten there completely alone? I must have locked the door. There was no reason to return to the backyard anyway. Certainly. I knew I needed to escape that nightmare, but what about the knife I still carried? I wondered, even if I left, would it really be over? So did I leave that house forever? Yes. Since I had arrived in town, things had been difficult. Working in the plant, though, had been good for me. It kept me in line, gave me something to do, and helped me get away from my past. When the factory closed, everything changed. I guess that was when I had started sleepwalking, disappearing for hours at a time. Drinking was probably just a way to deal with that. It was almost as if I was trying to beat my brain at its own game. Things stopped making sense sometime after that, and my memories of what happened are still in flux. I suppose that was when Rachel came along. This night had been the worst of my entire life. Would it even be possible to bounce back from everything that had happened, everything I'd seen? You know, in a way, I almost wish I hadn't even woken up tonight. It would have spared me a lot of pain. That man I had found in the old house had killed his wife. I was sure of it, just as sure as you killed mine. What happened in those dang sewers? I was lucky in my way to even find my way out of there, but I never did find out that what was on that tape I now kept. Considering all I had learned tonight, I wasn't sure I wanted to. And what had I been doing at Norman's place, or even in that old forest? It didn't look good, that's for sure. Had I been responsible for what had happened there? What do you think? Was I guilty, or was I just mad? That awful forest, though, was no better. It'd been dark, stuffy, and terrifying. Why had someone left that notebook? I didn't remember seeing that list of names anywhere else. Did I miss something? There were probably more terrifying discoveries to make in those woods, but I would never go back. Still, I knew that Norman had been going back to the factory, but I wasn't sure I understood why. The guard outside had obviously met a violent end. But do you think it was Norman? At this point, do you think he was even dead? I had to catch my breath to take it all in. At each point until the factory, things had only gotten worse. But then, going to Norman's store, that's where the confusion and doubt started to set in. That's when my perspective on all this really started to change. Damn it, Norman. What were you doing with Rachel? I mean, what was going on? If all this was a lie, then what was really happening? Someone had killed Norman in his store, but it wasn't me. Who else would have wanted him dead? But as painful as all of that was, oh no, I couldn't bear to think about it again. After all I had seen and done, finally coming home was supposed to be the end of this entire ordeal. I had no idea, though, that it was only the beginning. The silence in the house when I had first stepped through the kitchen door. That should have been my first clue. To think that I went through all of that completely unaware of what I would discover. Did you know before the end? Did you mock me when you finally showed me the truth? Why don't you don't know what it's like to have everything ripped away from you in a heartbeat? How could I possibly go on now knowing what I do without Rachel, even the thought of Rachel? I was truly lost. As the door swung open, I could smell a damp grass and the closeness of the air. After everything, it felt like I had more questions than answers. You made me see the truth, I'll give you that, but now I was completely lost. You took away the only thing that had kept me going. I was sure word would get out soon enough the police would come looking for me. And what then? Would you be there to show me the way? What can I do then? A very strange game, a very nice game. I believe you're looking for answers there, and depends on what you think, how you interpret the things you find in the house. So it has sort of a different ending, and it's like what you can make out of the puzzles you find. An unusual game it is. Maybe I will replace it after some time has passed, because I believe there is some replayability here and other interpretation of things. Press space to share your story. Press escape to quit. Alright guys, this was it. This was home. Thanks to Laraki, I could have played this. It's an interesting game. I hope you enjoyed it.